Greetings, folks. Welcome. When you hear the names Silicon Valley, Austin, Texas, Boston, Massachusetts, and the Research Triangle of North Carolina, a couple of things probably come to mind. First, these places are often cited as the top U.S. regions for economic development. Second, these places are well known for technology. So in this video, we're going to examine the connection between economic development and high technology. We'll start with some basic ideas about the impacts of technology on economic development. I think that at its heart, technology makes workers, companies, and regions more productive. In other words, it allows us to produce more goods and services per worker. Another aspect of technology is that it tends to be self-reinforcing, in that the presence of technology in a place makes new investments more attractive. That is, if a technology-based company is choosing between two places for a new location, it is likely to select the region where there are already more technology-based businesses. For this reason, technology contributes to divergence across places, where more productive regions grow and develop faster than others. To define high technology, we'll think in terms of how things are made as opposed to exactly what is being produced. Edward Malecki describes high technology as non-routine economic activities directed toward developing new products and processes and towards small volume production of innovative products and services. This is a pretty strict definition of high technology because it rules out items that are being mass-produced in large factories. But I guess this makes sense because it's hard to argue that something is on the cutting edge of technology if the product or service has been standardized to the point where it can be mass-produced. In a study about America's high-tech economy, Ross Duvall took an industry-based approach to measuring high technology. Duvall counted industries that are heavily involved in research and development and sectors that use high percentages of technology-using occupations. Based on these parameters, Duvall's study shows that the importance of high-tech sectors to the U.S. economy almost doubled from 1977 to 1997, growing from 5.7 to 10.8% of gross U.S. industry output. In the book The New Geography of Jobs, Enrico Moretti examined the importance of technology, which he referred to as the innovation sector, to regions. Moretti calculated a high technology multiplier, which found that every innovation sector worker can support an additional 5 jobs in other sectors. 2 of these additional 5 jobs are in high-paying occupations, while the other 3 are lower-paying service-oriented jobs. Moretti had a couple of explanations for the 5-to-1 innovation sector multiplier. First, high-tech workers earn high wages, so their spending on local goods and services, things like restaurant meals, haircuts, and retail goods, support additional economic activity. These are presumably the 3 out of 5 additional jobs in lower-paying service-oriented occupations. A second explanation is that the presence and growth of technology in a region makes future investments more attractive. Put another way, an agglomeration of innovation sector workers attracts additional high-tech workers, which contributes to the sector's multiplier. I conducted some analysis on the relationship between the economic development of U.S. regions and high technology. For this analysis, I used the sectors counted by Ross Duvall to identify high technology. Here's a list of the sectors that I included along with the sector's SIC codes, where SIC stands for Standard Industrial Classification. SIC codes were used back in 1990 to organize industries, but SIC codes have since been replaced by NAICS categories, where NAICS stands for North American Industry Classification System. The reason I counted high-tech as of 1990, and thus used SIC codes, is because the economic development indicators capture the growth of good jobs in U.S. regions from 1990 to the mid-2010s. So the idea is to look at how conditions back in 1990 affected economic development moving forward. Anyways, the sectors counted as high-tech include pharmaceuticals, electronic components, airplanes, and medical devices. Also, high-tech included computer programming services, engineering services, and research and development services. Using these sectors, I calculated the percentage of businesses in a region that are high-tech as of 1990. The top U.S. metros included San Jose, Boulder, Washington, D.C., and Boston. It's interesting that most of the places listed in the table are still among the top regions for high technology over 30 years later. This supports the idea that the presence of high-tech businesses and workers in a region make future investments even more attractive. This scatter plot shows the relationship between the Economic Development Index of U.S. metros and the percentage of businesses in high tech. The trend line is upward sloping, and it's a solid line to indicate that the relationship is statistically significant. In other words, high-tech businesses help the economic development of U.S. metros. This chart is a summary of the effects of high-tech on states, all U.S. metropolitan areas, and then large metropolitan areas with 1 million or more people, and small metros with fewer than 1 million residents. The height of the bars represent the size of the impact in terms of standard deviations when we increase a region's share of high-tech businesses by 1 standard deviation. The second bar, labeled as all metros, summarizes the scatter plot that we just looked at. It tells us that a 1 standard deviation increase in a metropolitan area's percentage of high-tech businesses corresponds with about a 0.3 standard deviation increase in the Economic Development Index of metros. The bars are shaded in red to indicate results that are statistically significant. A result that really jumps out at you is the relatively large positive effect of high-tech businesses in large metropolitan areas, which we'll revisit in a few moments. First, though, let's look at how high technology impacts the economic development of metropolitan areas in terms of the employment, income, and persistence indices. The bar on the far right side of the figure, labeled as Economic Development Index, shows the now familiar result that a 1 standard deviation increase in a metropolitan area's percentage of high-tech businesses corresponds with about a 0.3 standard deviation increase in the Economic Development Index of metros. The other 3 bars show new information that high technology affects the growth of metros in terms of the employment index and the quality of jobs in terms of the income and persistence indices. So we can summarize the effects of high technology on the economic development of U.S. regions, looking at metros of all size, and say that high technology helps the growth and quality of jobs. In other words, places with an abundance of high-tech companies experience more robust growth and greater development than others. Given that technology is helping some regions grow faster and experience higher productivity and incomes, it's leading to a divergence of economic fortunes where some regions are moving farther ahead from the rest of the pack. This is what Enrico Moretti means by U.S. regions are diverging, and the strongest economies, what Moretti refers to as innovation hubs, are experiencing more development. Let's come back now to the effects of high technology on the economic development of large U.S. metros, since we learned earlier that technology is particularly important to the economic development of these places. This figure summarizes the effects of high technology on the employment, income, persistence, and overall economic development indices in metropolitan areas with 1 million or more people. We actually already looked at the far right bar, which is labeled as Economic Development Index, in an earlier figure, and it suggests that a 1 standard deviation increase in a large metro's percentage of high-tech businesses corresponds with about a 0.6 standard deviation increase in the Economic Development Index. In this figure, we now learn that this large impact of economic development is primarily due to the effects of technology on the quality of jobs in a large region, as measured by the income and persistence indices. So I guess the last word on high technology is that it contributes to the economic development of U.S. metropolitan areas, particularly larger ones, and the impacts on large metros come primarily via job quality more so than growth. Does this bottom line sound familiar? Well, it should, because we found very similar results for the impacts of human capital, which we defined as a share of people with at least a 4-year college degree. Here's a figure from a previous video which shows that when you focus on large U.S. metropolitan areas, the college attainment rate impacts overall economic development primarily through the income and persistence indices. But I'm not done yet. We also found very similar results for the impacts of the creative economy. Here's yet another figure from a previous video, which shows that when you focus on large U.S. metropolitan areas, the percentage of workers in creative jobs impacts overall economic development, once again, primarily through the income and persistence indices. So there you have it. When you pull together some findings from several of the videos about economic development, we learned that technology, education, and the creative economy, and I should point out that many of these features of regions overlap, but these characteristics are particularly important to the economic development of large U.S. metros with 1 million or more people. Places such as Boston and Chicago, oh wait, I think I'm just naming bands from the 70s and 80s, but also New York, Houston, Miami, and Detroit. And technology, education, and the creative economy impact wages and employment persistence. These are indicators of good jobs in a region, more so than the growth of large metropolitan areas. With all that in mind, let's end our look at the relationship between regional economic development and high technology with a few key takeaways. First, research almost universally shows the benefits of high technology to workers, businesses, and regions. Second, high technology sectors contribute to the growth and development of U.S. regions when you study metropolitan areas of all sizes. Finally, when you focus on large metropolitan areas with 1 million or more people, high technology is especially important to the quality of jobs. And this result is very similar to what we found when examining educational attainment and the creative economy.